Good evening, everyone. The hour being after 6:30, I'd like to call the Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 School Building Committee meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge public participation. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed into law an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, which, among other things, extends the expiration of the provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. Specifically, this extension allows remote and hybrid meeting options for public bodies through March 31st, 2025, without a quorum of the public body physically present at the meeting location, and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings. The Act does not make any new changes to the open meeting law other than extending the expiration date of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings to March 31st, 2025. Our next order of business is approval of meeting minutes. Do we have any questions or comments about the minutes? Hearing none, I take a motion to approve the meeting minutes. I have a motion from Jack Fisher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Nancy Gallivan. Let me poll the committee. Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Dr. Kenny?
Abstain, I wasn't present.
Very good. Ms. Gallivan?
Yes.
Ms. Gaositz?
Yes.
Very good. Dr. Goff?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Conroy?
Yes.
Jeff Fisher?
Abstain.
Jack Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Senek?
Yes.
And I vote yes, it is a vote. Our next order of business is the generator presentation. Kate, if you could, please.
So the Bird Middle School auxiliary generator analysis, we're just going to talk through it really quickly. So topics that we're going to review are building requirements, power requirements, generator selection, location, fuel selection, safety, testing cycle, and planned usage. We're going to look at some other recent K-12 construction projects, self-certification process, and just reviewing what Tier 2 versus Tier 3 generators is.
Kate, is there any way we can bring it up on the screen?
Oh, I don't know why it's not changing.
It's changing on my
It's like it's on.
laptop, but it's not changing on the...
Showing for the TV, but
Okay, gotta start over.
Do you want me to try to stop sharing and reshare?
looks good.
It's not the page that I have on my screen, though.
Delayed.
Could be problems with the generator.
Tommy.
All right. Seems to be matching up. So building requirements in the event of a power failure during the school day. Student and staff safety is top priority. Classes will not normally continue. Students will be moved to the common areas in Wing C, which includes the gym, auditorium, cafeteria, and band room. Students will remain in common areas until released. The central kitchen must operate as normal to accommodate other schools in the district, and mechanical systems will remain in operation for freeze protection by way of the sequenced building management system. Didn't change. There we go. Power requirements, so power must be maintained for emergency lighting, student common areas, the central kitchen supporting the entire school district, building mechanical management system, security system, one elevator will remain online, data closet power, and power will be programmed to rotate to reduce overall loading and auxiliary power requirements. And just a reminder, heating and cooling systems are 100% electric in this building. There's no other power source. Sorry, we just have a delay in the room with the slide switching.
All set?
The slide did not switch yet, Kevin.
Okay.
There you go. Kevin, you're all set.
So again, this is a summary of the loads, more or less replicating what Kate had gone through in the various areas, lighting and equipment on the generator, totaling to just under 560 kVA, which is a little bit under a 750 kVA capacity generator. So the generator is a 600 kW, its kVA rating is 750. So, as with anything else, we do not load everything to absolute 100%, just in good practice of sizing equipment. So. And the generator is in conformance with the Clean Air Act according to the US EPA, and we'll see that in documentation in a further slide.
Still waiting for it to switch in the room, so hold on one second.
Yep, just let me know.
Is that just your own copy of the presentation?
No, it's coming up. If you're on your laptop, it's just not coming on these screens in this room.
There we go. All right. We can see the generator selection slide, so Kevin, do you want to continue?
Okay. So again, this is generator selection. The generator is a Perkins 600 kW. Again, size is 600 kW. Its category is a tier 2. Its fuel consumption, it has a 1,500 gallon self-contained tank, which will give us 36 hours of runtime at 100% load. So that's a minimum runtime. Obviously, there are variables of, if the tank is not at 100% full, but more times than not, there'll always be variables on equipment that's actually comes on at full capacity, either mechanical equipment, an elevator running, so on and so forth. So again, it could be in excess of 36 hours. The generator would continue to run until the utility is restored, or if it runs out of fuel. The unit provided does meet DEP size requirements. During design, various sizes were evaluated for the project. Much larger units were looked at. And in addition to the various sizes looked at, there was a question raised about using multiple units versus one single unit. And multiple units, as the old adage says, if you can do it with one, why would you do it with two? Two would have, added to the overall distribution system in the building and would involve more maintenance on multiple units. Again, one versus two headaches versus one.
Kate, we good to go?
No, hold on one second.
Okay.
There we go. It changed, Matt. Go ahead.
Thank you. So we looked at multiple locations on the site for the generator. As Kevin said, we looked at different options. We looked at a full building option, which was a much larger generator. We looked at split options of two smaller units, and then also the unit we currently have. The site is very small and limited for where it can go. We kind of locate it with help with our electrical engineer, also our acoustical consultant, and also with comments from the town. And due to the very small site options, we kind of located it in the back of the site here, so it meets the sound requirements that is also met from the Mass DEP. We worked with our acoustical consultant to make sure that the control of noise to the neighboring properties was met for the DEP requirements. This location was also chosen due to its location close to the electrical room, which is on the same facade. We looked at other options around the building as well, but moving it to the other side of the building led to a much longer conduit run, and we also did not want the conduit runs going underneath the building. The recommended location complies with all the zoning bylaws, section 6B, table 6B.1, and exceeds all the setback requirements. We looked at adding a higher stack, but adding a higher stack requires additional supports, and the guy wires, which come off of that at a 45-degree angle. If you look down at the diagram down at the very bottom, it kind of shows different options for the diameter for where the guy wires are at. Those kind of interfere with the usage. Some of them would interfere with the driving access lane that goes back behind the school. That's the fire department's access road to the back of the building. So the guide wires would interfere with that drive. And also they get very close and tight to the property line as well, depending on what option stack you go with. Also, the fire department does not support a roof-mounted generator due to spill mitigation. And the roof would also have to be redesigned to support the generator and the fuel option if we looked at that.
Maybe- Go ahead, Kevin, our slide changed.
Okay, this slide's dealing with the fuel selection. The Walpole Fire Department was approached regarding the fuel source. They did not recommend natural gas or propane power generators for the site. Natural gas was not available at the new building and would require installation of a new 8-inch high-pressure line to the school. Propane storage requirements were significant and increased site safety issues. And the state building code does not allow natural gas as a backup fuel source for generators that are providing life safety, which is your emergency lighting in the building unless approved by the local authority, which goes back to the first bullet where the fire department did not recommend natural gas. So diesel was the recommended fuel supply, minimizing, fire safety issues, giving us a 36-hour continuous operation at full loading. And for extended outage, that would give us at least a day and a half to 2 days.
Just follow on the presentation.
These are the environmental protection certificates that are provided by the electrical subcontractor and the generator manufacturer, identifying the compliance of the actual unit with the EPA requirements. That's the document on the left. The document on the right is a page from the submission, and it's just outlining the highlighted section, which is the fuel system and the fuel type, which is the ultra-low sulfur fuel, which we kind of get into in a later slide, but that's something that had been implemented by the EPA in 2006 as part of making these Tier 2 generators efficient and environmentally, safe for the, locations where they're being installed.
Go ahead.
The testing cycle planned uses, the generator maintenance testing. This is your monthly testing. It's generally for a duration of 20 minutes. It would happen once a month. And it's programmed testing that can be done any day and at any time during that day. On a Saturday, Sunday, Monday through Friday, any hour, within any hour of the 24-day period. 24-hour period in the day. The generator, again, would run for utility power outage as long as the outages last. Unplanned outage history. And again, to the best of our knowledge, we've done a little bit of digging over the last 5 years. The Bird School has lost power 2 times during the school. I believe that should say school year versus school day. So the history of power outages in that area is minimal, and that'll bleed into the Tier 2 versus Tier 4 information that we'll look at a little bit further in the next few slides down.
We just want to touch base on other recent K-12 construction projects, just for reference. So the Walpole Middle School has a 600 kilowatt generator. The Norwood Coakley Middle School has a 1,250 kilowatt generator. The Doherty High School in Worcester has a 1,000 kilowatt generator. Worcester South High School has a 900 kilowatt generator. David Proddy High School in Spencer has a 600 kilowatt generator. Westfield Elementary School has a 750 kilowatt generator. Kennedy Middle School in Natick has an 800 kilowatt generator. And the Westwood Elementary School has a 500 kilowatt generator. Touch base on the self-certification.
Yeah, so the last piece of compliance is if you have a generator that's size 37 kilowatts or greater, after you start that generator up, the town has to file with DEP this self-certification form. And basically, we kind of preemptively with the design team got together, got our hands on that self-certification form, went through it with the design team to make sure there was nothing on there that was going to be a surprise or an issue for the town after the generator started. And everyone's confident that everything is lined up and has no issue with the self-certification process.
And Kevin, do you want to just touch base on the tier 1, tier 2 question?
Sure. This was a question regarding, utilizing a tier 2 machine versus a tier 4. There's generally two categories for the generator: station emergency, which is the tier 4, and non-emergency tier 2. The station emergency tier 4 generators operating in excess of 500 hours annually. Again, that's a generator that's going to operate in excess of 500 hours a year. Generators considered as prime movers utilized to back facilities on a continuous basis to operate essential equipment and machinery and/or peak shaving. And again, that's something, a generator that would be used to offset utility costs. They would run it for hours on end to, offset higher utility cost. The non-emergency / portable tier 2 will only operate, on a temporary basis, less than 500 hours annually. So again, the point that was made earlier about only having 2 outages over the course of the year and within a 5-year span lends to the fact that, this generator, if there isn't an outage during the course of the year, it's only going to operate 20 minutes a month for 12 months for testing. And then, again, if you had an outage that lasted, for 2 days or 3 days, you're talking 24, 36, 70, 60 hours. So again, it's highly unlikely that we would ever approach that 500 hours annually. So therefore, the requirements for everything that was looked at for this project, directed us right to the design of a tier 2. Tier 2 generators are required to meet the EPA guidelines for emission reductions in air quality. And again, the certifications from the manufacturer identifying that was shown on the previous slide, as well as, I don't know if it's the next slide, but the fuel source, the low sulfur fuel that was implemented by the EPA, again, to help the emissions and, for tier 2 generators as well as tier 4 generators. But again, the EPA has set guidelines, and these generator manufacturers have met these guidelines, as well as, fuel sources that they're using. And just a couple of other footnotes, that the tier 4 unit is much larger than the tier 2. And then this from one of our generator suppliers, going from a tier 2 to a tier 4 would have added over $200,000. Just that would have been material cost only, increase the annual maintenance cost. And then a tier 4 requires a diesel exhaust fluid. And if that was to have run out, again, that's the helping the exhaust mitigate the exhaust leaving the unit. If that ran out, then the generator would shut down. So again, it adds a bit more maintenance and monitoring of the units versus a tier 2.
I'll send it back to you, Mr. Chair. That's all we have.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I got a question. How would we operate the generator differently if it was an in-school event versus on the weekend or night? Would we scale it back in those common rooms and?
No, it's essentially when power is lost, everything that was shown on that equipment list there'll be emergency. I'm going to say emergency. There'll be generator power available to everything that's on that list. So the emergency lighting, your fire alarm systems, your security systems, the kitchen equipment, everything is, it will be able to run. Again, the mechanical systems will be able to run as they are sequenced through the building management system. In other words, we looked at putting every single piece of mechanical equipment on, and that would have probably tripled or quadrupled the generator size if we were going to do that. Essentially, as Matt, I think, alluded to earlier, making it a full building generator. So, but again, you know, there's, without somebody, you know, I think what you're leading to is, you know, that's what would be known as load shedding. So, you know, then you'd have a program and you'd have to program in place. And again, this is all somewhat hypothetical stuff that, you know, if, you know, what's going on in the building? Is it a Sunday night? Is it an auditorium event? Is it a Saturday and a gymnasium event? You know, is the auditorium needed? Is it in the summertime? Is it in the winter time? So again, you could set up an infinite number of programs in a load shedding scheme, but again, that's cost, and you know, it's if and when it would ever be needed versus, you know, you've got the capacity there. If it, you know, you lose power, again, it's kind of Murphy's Law. Is everything going to happen at once? Is it going to be 0 degrees out? Is it going to be 100 degrees out? We don't know. So it's, you know, but there is at the moment, you know, there is no selectability to say, okay, well, we'll only have the gym on in the kitchen. We'll only have the calf on in the kitchen. So, and again, in isolating those individual spaces, lighting wise, or the general power, when I say general power, receptacles that are in there for, you know, if you had, we're going to use the gymnasium to bring people in, you've got receptacles, devices in there that are on standby. Again, that doesn't add it, you know, in a single space by itself, it isn't breaking the bank, if you will. So, I mean, again, it's not gonna, you know, it's gonna be less load, obviously, on the generator, but when you look at what that, just the lighting load and the, you know, the receptacle loads in those areas, it's not a lot. It's the mechanical, you know, it's everything as a culmination, the mechanical stuff, the elevator, the kitchen, you know, the building management stuff, your security stuff, your fire alarm stuff. So again, there's a lot there, but trying to isolate one single thing, you know, and saying, okay, we could reduce the generator size or knock it back a little bit, it's not as easy as it sounds.
Anybody else? Questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Walsh, did you want to speak?
Sure. Can I use the mic?
Sure. Right up the chair, please.
I saw, oh, excuse me. My name is Dave Walsh. I'm an abutter to the middle school project. It's going very well and very fast. I'm happy to see that progress is being made there. I did see in the presentation made that there were some certificates shown. I don't quite understand what they were. I think they might be the certificates of EPA approval from the manufacturer. Is that correct? Could we get maybe go back to that slide and see exactly what they were? I'm curious.
You are, Dave.
I want to ask this committee, have we yet applied to the Mass DEP for an air quality permit or this self-certification that we talked about? Is that our only guiding lines right now, is a self-certification? This gentleman spoke of it earlier.
That's the Mass DEP requirement, yeah.
A self-certification is? Oh, really? Are we intending to get an air quality permit from Mass DEP as required?
I can't speak to that. We talked to Mass DEP and they directed us to this self-certification process.
Really? Aren't you required to fulfill the obligations of the Massachusetts ERP program? On a very early page, it does say, and I'll read, particular care is required when locating emergency engines and emergency turbines to avoid causing a localized health and nuisance problem from emissions or sound impacts, clean fuel requirements, and la-di-da. So my understanding is that Mass DEP needs to make a site approval. Not only does the machine have to be EPA approved and certified, but they have to approve where it's going. Isn't that true? Or you are a
The-
Mass DEP expert?
No, I'm not. Certainly not. I'm the builder.
You're a builder, okay.
Kevin, do you want to step in and answer that question?
Yeah, again, I think this has been brought up in the past, and again, I want to say that, you know, that the EPA has set guidelines for the generators, and part of those guidelines in terms of dealing with the emissions is the implementation of utilizing, mandating the use of ultra-low sulfur fuels, and that's 15 parts per million, which is the requirement for all Tier 2 generators going forward after 2006. So, you know, the EPA has set the guidelines. The manufacturers are manufacturing these units to meet these guidelines. So again, you know, the manufacturers are not going to make something or produce something and ship it out to a site that certainly wouldn't meet the EPA guidelines. And I think as Matt had indicated on the diagram, that all the setbacks for noise had been met. And in terms, because we had looked at this, it didn't show up on a slide, but the setbacks for, you know, which are highly sensitive to the building would be your air intakes, your fresh air intakes from the mechanical system. And those setbacks, depending on whose literature you look at, is a minimum of 10 feet. And in some literature, it went as much as 30 feet. Well, we exceed that to the property line and to the building in both directions. So in terms of the location, as far as the emissions, you know, being, you know, having the generator sitting 5 feet from the property line, that I would see as being an issue. But, you know, the setbacks have been met, sound, and the emissions. The unit meets all DEP and EPA requirements. That's been proven, not proven, but I mean, obviously it's proven. The certification is there from the manufacturer. So again, you know, the EPA has set guidelines. The manufacturers are meeting those guidelines. I think if the EPA had a concern that the you know, machines were going to be put in place that were unsafe, they would have built more stringent guidelines. So I think at this point in time, the guidelines have been set, the manufacturers are meeting them, the setbacks have been met. And again, I have not seen, and I've done many schools in the last 20 or 30 years, and not to say it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I have not seen where the DEP has come out to a site and dictated where the unit was going to sit on any given site. And there has never been any rebuttals after that, you know, that it should have been, you know, a quarter of a mile around the other side of the site, or 500 yards to the left, to the north, to the east. So again, I can't say that that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I have not seen that in my experience in the last 20 or 30 years.
The EPA approval of a machine is just merely a certification that it meets the requirements made by the manufacturer. That's half the job. The other half of the job is its location. A setback requirement is a physical location from borders, fences, or whatever, but exhaust fumes from a diesel generator don't obey laws of or what chain link fence might do. So the diagram that's up there on the wall is fruitless, because those fumes are not going to be contained by any 35-foot setback. It's not going to just do the job. Moreover, like I say, we're only halfway through by selecting the machine. The bigger part of the job is where it's located. And you can't put such a large machine in a residential area. That machine is perfectly suited for a very, on a large mountaintop somewhere. But you can't put that machine within 100 feet of a bedroom that has a little child in that residence. It's just not practical. It's just absurd to try to even think of putting such a 900 horsepower machine, not at idle, it's at 1800 RPM, which is half throttle for a couple of big Kenworth big rig machines sitting there spewing exhaust fumes out in through a bedroom window that contains one little kid. If it was your kid, you surely wouldn't want that machine running any length of time. The analogy here is if UL approves a hair dryer, sure, that's a great thing, but you would be a fool to try to use it while standing in a bathtub. You just can't put this machine in such a small residential area. It just does not make sense. We need to either relocate the machine or make it smaller or change its fuel type or do something. But that machine in that location is not practical, and we need to find another course of action to take to solve this problem. We can't just say that, yes, we can self-certify it and sweep it under the rug and do like we've done other times. We have to face this issue and get it solved.
Thank you, Mr.
I would suggest that we follow the Mass DEP rules and get a site evaluation. And Mr. Tom Crowley, no, I'm sorry, he's our building commissioner. Thomas Cushing from the Mass DEP would love to be able to come out and look at our site. And it's he that we have to please and make sure that this site will be appropriate to put this SD 600 machine there. I'm sure he'll approve something that's smaller, but that won't make our district, whoever's looking for all these power requirements, make them happy. We have to either downsize the machine or relocate it or find some other solution. But this is not the way to go by putting this Tier 2 machine in such a location. It just doesn't belong there. By the way, the Coakley School in Norwood has a 1.2 megawatt machine, but they have many acres to put it in. And so the other examples of the very large generators at schools are very fine, but they also have very large surrounding areas. They're not within 100 feet of a residential home, I guarantee you that. And we can't, we have to get all the facts. And I think this committee is taking the advice of landscape architects and not inputting anything from environmental experts. We need to consider the health and well-being of the abutters. And I'm sure just getting it out of sight from East Street should not be high on the priority. We should put the health and well-being of the abutters at a top level priority to get this job accomplished. I'm all for having a generator, and we certainly need it, but not this generator at this location.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Allison Miles. I am a neighbor of Mr. Walsh. We just moved back to the area recently, built our dream home. We moved in a week ago, and we just recently found out about this generator being built basically across the street from our home. And we were so excited when we started this building process to have our kids be able to walk to school, have this brand-new, beautiful school building that all three of my kids will be able to attend. But we're very disappointed to find out about this harmful situation, potentially harmful situation for our kids. I guess I haven't been to these other meetings. I don't have all of the information. So I did have a few questions. So I understand that we are meeting the basic requirements set by the EPA in 2006. I mean, certainly, we have made significant improvements in technology and in what we understand about environmental safety since 2006. So I think that's like a bare minimum that we meet those standards. Can I ask, like, I know that you're farther along in this process, but like, what other cleaner, more energy efficient options were considered? Or has it only been this diesel option? Because if we're building this beautiful, we're building this big, beautiful new school, it would seem like we're planning for the future. So planning for the future ought to also include, like, maybe not some like ancient diesel-powered technology. I would think that we would want the most energy efficient, clean option that would, that would go along with this big, beautiful, brand-new school. So I don't know, like, can somebody tell me what else was considered? Were there, I am happy to, like, I'm an attorney by training. I am, like, really into research, and that is in my wheelhouse. If we need to look into, like, what kind of options the state provides, incentives, if we need to look into how we can get a grant to help fund a better option for generators for this school, so that my kids and the other kids that live right near this generator aren't being harmed by it.
Mr. Fisher?
Couple of things. One of the key things that we looked at as a committee and as the design team and the project management team looked at was energy efficiency. We're gonna be LEED certified, okay? You don't get much better than that from a school building, okay? So from the get-go, energy efficiency, clean energy has been a key thing. We're continuing on that path because we're looking at solar panels. It's not part of the original baseline, but it can be accommodated. What we're talking about is equipment to try to take care of an emergency situation that's happened, as best as we know, only twice in the last 5 years, not for a real extended time, but long enough so that the kids would have to get dismissed from school if they were in school at the time, plus 20 minutes a month. Okay, the best option that we have within the laws and regulations that are out there right now are what we selected. The school department has been very clear about what is the minimal things that have to be supplied to the students and the staff to keep them safe until they can be released. We took that, went through a requirements analysis and said, this is the power that we need to do for these parts of the building, okay? The only thing that's viable right now for power, emergency power, is diesel. Under state law. Propane doesn't make any sense because it adds all sorts of site safety issues, and natural gas isn't permitted. So we're kind of, I won't say we're stuck, but that's basically what the reality is. You can talk, now, no one says that diesel is necessarily cleaner than propane or natural gas, but it's what we have and what we'd have to deal with. And our engineering staff, they went out and they very carefully calculated what was the minimum that was required to do it. Because by having an energy efficient building, you have to make sure that you keep your mechanical systems operational and either warm or cool. So this isn't something that we just kind of threw together. This has been worked on for the last 2 years. And the reason for this meeting tonight was some of us were talking and we said, we want to make sure that we've captured everything, that we've done the analysis, there's no holes in it, okay? And we don't feel that right now that there's any holes in this at all. We're complying with the requirements that we have to, both at the state, local, and federal level, okay? And it's for a minimum emergency situation, plus the test period of 20 minutes a month. So, I understand your concern, but if you want energy efficiency, if you want to be, and you want to take care of your kids while they're in that school building, or you want to protect the school building in the event that the power failure happens when it's sub-zero out or 110 degrees, you have to have emergency backup power. We're limited to diesel. We limited the size by using, I think the term was load shedding. So it's kind of where we are right now. And I understand your concern, but also keep in mind that we've taken those concerns into account over the last 2 years when we did the original analysis, and then when we've gone through this again and taken a look at this, and said, this is the best solution that we can come up with right now.
Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate it. Like I said, I didn't come in with all of the information, so that's why I asked the question. I don't understand like all of the technology information, but something Mr. Walsh said that I didn't understand, if you could clarify for me, was something about it like running at half load consistently. Was that, did anybody else, I didn't know what that meant. And so does that mean like it's gonna, like, is it essentially idling when it's not being run?
No.
No, okay.
The generator.
Generator,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the generator, I mean, not to, and again, I am not trying to downplay this. I don't think anybody else on the committee is either, but Murphy's Law, we could open this building and we could lose power 5 times in the first month. But in the past 5 years, you've only lost power in that area twice. So that generator is going to sit there and it'll run less than the people who are mowing their lawn in the course of a week, your neighbors. It'll run for 20 minutes, that's it, every single month during the course of the year just for testing. And again, and just to address the 2006 date was when the EPA updated its mandates to make manufacturers and end users use a much more efficient fuel supply. It's almost like going to the high ethanol or whatever, the new gas that they went to that, messed up everybody's fuel tanks because it ate up all the gunk that was in the tanks and it went through the carburetors. But again, I think a lot of people have said that we've complied with, the manufacturers are complying with the EPA requirements. Certainly, I think if the EPA didn't think that their enforcement of the ultra-low sulfur fuel wasn't adequate to meet safety requirements, they would implement another restriction, okay? And, the next one may be, nobody's going to use diesel fuel for emergency generators. That could happen in 2030, who knows? But again, that was implemented, it started in 2006. It's not antiquated. I mean, it's just, again, the EPA looks at environmental issues all the time. So again, it's just, if they thought that there was a need for a new or an upgraded restriction, I think we would see it at some point. And not to say that it isn't around the corner, but those are the guidelines that the manufacturers have to meet, and the installations have to meet. So again, it's 17 years old, but that's what it is.
All right. I think that was all of the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, Ally. Can I have another few minutes?
Certainly.
Am I to understand that we're not going to go forward with the Mass DEP air quality permit, or are we just going to go with our self-certification? Can anybody answer that? We need to get Mass DEP's approval of what we're doing. If that happens, then I and all of our other abutters will cease talking. If we can get Mass DEP to say, this is a fine location for that machine, then I'll shut up. But I don't think you're gonna do that. This machine is already known to the Mass DEP, and I'm in conversations with Tom Cushing at Mass DEP, and he tells me that that machine will not be approved for that location. Fine if you get acres and acres to put it on, but the SD 600 is just too much of a machine for such a small place. I'm suggesting that we get our ducks in a row before we install that machine. The concrete pad is already in place. It would be a shame if the taxpayers of Walpole have to remove that machine and put in a smaller machine that fits the location. I'm trying to save us money because I'm a taxpayer here in Walpole, and I don't want to see money go to waste. If we have to purchase this machine, install it, and then remove it and do it all over again, that's a waste of money. I think we just need to rethink this and start at square one if we have to, and do what's right. Make it work for the location. Keep the location and the surrounding abutters in mind when we do this. We can't just put it in because the machine says we can put it in. We have to be thinking about the health and well-being of the abutters.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you once again.
Anybody else, questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Miles, as well. Thanks. All right, our next item of business, Mr.
One
Fisher?
thing,
Yep.
just to close out, I'd like to thank the Vertex team, the engineering team. I kind of drove you crazy over the last couple of months on this one, but the work that's been done over the last couple of months is to make sure that we didn't have any holes in the data, that we had done the analysis completely. And I think that what we've seen here tonight, that there's some discussion about certain things, but I think that this shows a very complete picture of what it is, what the requirements were, how we arrived at those requirements, and the entire process of what we went through. So I just want to thank Kate and the team, and sorry to drive you crazy if I did.
Thanks, Jack. So our next item of business is the project status update. Kate?
Joel Griffin, you want to take it?
So this photo here, this is looking at your main entry. You can see the footings there, kind of in the middle of that courtyard. That's for the entrance canopy that we've talked about a couple times. So you can see the masons moving along the building. Windows are installed. There's that curtain wall there in the corner in the media center. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but that's being installed as well. This picture kind of just working the way around the building. The mason continues with the brick. You can see the poly, the white at the top of the gym there. That's going to be your translucent panels. Those will be showing up in the next couple weeks. And then to kind of the back left of that picture there, you can see the mason has tented for his brick just to basically keep it heated in there while they're running the brick. That's a better picture of it there. So on the left side, that's really the last portion of the building that the mason will be working in. And then as far as windows, we're pretty well wrapped up as well. There's a couple loading areas that we have open just to kind of get material into the building. But as far as the exterior goes, we're pretty close to wrapping up. And then we have a couple pictures from the first floor of A building. You can see The grid, the ceiling grid is started. The tile in the bathrooms and the hallways is complete. Another photo of the typical classroom on the first floor of A building, so you can see the casework starting to go in. We'll be installing the flooring in the next, probably pretty soon after the new year. And then the picture on the right there is the second floor technology classroom, so we have one of those on each floor. And then that kind of the opening there is where you'll have the folding glass doors.
Our screen's not changing, but do you want us to just keep going?
There it goes. So you can see the photo on the left there, that's like your main entrance, admin suite. That's fully framed out, roughed. You can see they're starting to sheet rock. The picture on the right, that's the cafeteria. You can see the skylight kind of at the top there. And then on the right side where that wall goes up, that's gonna be your wood ceiling that kind of wraps up to the full ceiling height. More photos of the cafeteria. Rough is ongoing. And then on the right there is the kitchen area, so rough's ongoing, the kitchen as well. We'll start seeing some of the kitchen equipment in probably the middle of January at this point. So they'll start setting some of that stuff in the kitchen as the rough continues. And then these couple photos here, so the stair on your left there, that's your back of house loading dock area. That's, we call it stair 7. And then on the right there, you can see the progress in the gym. The ductwork's complete overhead, and you can see the white on the trusses there. That's all the intumescent fireproofing. And then a couple photos inside the media center. So on the photo on the right there, you can see that curtain wall that I was talking about on the corner. And then the photo on the left, that's out in the hallway, kind of looking into the media center. You can see that big hollow metal frame, so that'll all be glass looking into the media center as well.
Are the exterior windows, they're complete, right? On the right-hand picture?
That curtain wall?
Right-hand picture, those are exterior windows, right?
Yeah, so that's a curtain wall. That's in, the glazing's in. There's like clips that have to go over the frame. Those aren't in yet, but as far as like being weather tight, that's pretty much what it's gonna look like from the interior, and then the exterior, you'll have just kind of a cleaner look on the frames.
Okay, thanks.
And then, it's just some items here for look ahead. One of the milestones, interior framing's complete. You know, rough is ongoing, sheet rocking's ongoing, taping, interior CMU, so there's some CMU locker bases. We'll be seeing the lockers this week. Those they installed up probably start next week on the first floor of A building. Painters on site, he's moving pretty well. Tile's been started from the first floor, working their way up. Same thing goes with the acoustical ceiling grid. We also got some casework deliveries last week, so those are starting to go in as well. And then just a couple items that are pretty close to nearing complete, intumescent fireproofing. So they had a final testing this week. There's probably going to be some touch-up work as we close up walls and whatnot, so they'll stick around for a little bit between the intumescent and the cementitious. The brick, as you can see in that photo, they're wrapping up in kind of that north side of D building, and then they'll be out of here. Same thing with the windows. There's a handful of openings that are still left And the majority of those are just, like I mentioned, we have loading areas just to get material into the building on upper floors and whatnot. Metal lockers, I touched on that. RTU, we have our RTUs coming the week after Christmas. So they'll be rigging those up to the roof that week while school is off. And then just a little bit further, look ahead, the resinous flooring in the bathrooms will be starting the first week of January.
Any questions on the construction update, look ahead? To touch bases on meetings held, we continue to have our weekly owner, architect, contractor meetings. We have internal hot list meetings on Friday with Vertex, Fontaine, Tape. Our technology meetings are ongoing bi-weekly. We're working to fine tune the technology design, and that will be going out to bid in January. Our furniture, fixtures, and equipment package is currently out to bid. Our meetings are still ongoing, and that went out to bid on the 7th of December, and we're expecting bids back on the 21st of December. So we are going to be bringing the furniture package to the next building committee meeting for approval. And then transition, move management, meetings are ongoing. We'll probably be bringing a mover on board in February. Construction administration, TAPE continues to be on-site weekly, and their consultants are on-site as needed. And our third-party testing agent is on-site as needed. We have more window testing this week, and more intumescent paint testing tomorrow, fireproofing. So they're coming and going frequently. Document control, submittal review is ongoing. RFIs, which are requests for information, are going back and forth. We're currently at 242 RFIs. Architect supplemental instructions, ASI, continue to be issued by TAPE. We've had about 15 since the last building committee meeting, and we have 3 new proposed change orders to talk through. So in terms of project status, the PCO log review, this is just a summary of the VE list that we had previously talked about. There have been 3 new items added to the bottom, which include site furnishing, the upgrade to key trees and shrubs, and then PE storage containers at the field. And these are the 3 new kind of PCO items. The requests for proposals have all been issued by TAPE for these items that are currently in pricing, and we're hoping to get prices back over the next month for these. Project status contingency review, nothing has changed here over the last month, but just to show you that we're in really good shape with the contingencies. PCO log, we're not going to ask for any approvals today of change orders. And then just a reminder, underneath the black line on the bottom are the 3 new, which were the site furnishings, upgrade key tree and shrubs, and the PE storage containers. And just a reminder that during the VE process, the outside classroom and the outside cafeteria spaces were fully designed, but the seating itself was VE'd out. So there's no exterior seating at those locations currently, so we're looking at trying to price that to get it back into the project. And then upgrade key trees and shrubs. So during the VE process, the trees and shrubs in certain locations were downgraded, just smaller sizes when they initially get planted. And we're just looking at some key locations that will initially start their growing a little bit stronger. And then PE storage containers at the fields. This is something that came up during our weekly meetings when thinking about how the PE teachers are going to use the outside fields and where the gym is located. So the gym is on the 2nd floor, and the PE classes tend to go out to the fields for PE. So we're looking at pricing a storage container to have outside so they don't have to bring all the equipment up and down constantly. The next is the vendor invoice package.
Do we have any questions or comments about the vendor invoice package? Hearing none, I take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion from Dr. Kenny, almost said Mrs. Kenny. Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second from Ms. Gallivan. Let me pull the committee. Mr. Frisha.
Yes.
Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Dr. Kenny,
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Ms. Gaositz,
yes,
Dr. Goff,
yes,
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy, Jeff Fisher,
Yes.
Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn was with us, he might not be anymore, Mr. Senek,
Yes.
and I vote yes, it is a vote. Next, Kate?
So we are looking for a vote on TAPE ad service for additional technology consulting services in the amount of, or not to exceed the amount of $27,500. This has come up during our technology design phase, and it's additional technology design that includes infrastructure required in Town Hall to support the new building and exploring adding redundancy to the phones and the server. So this is something that's just come up, we have to have the Bird School online, the Johnson School online, and the new building online all at the same time. So, and we also want to make sure that we're building in redundancy to the phone system and server system. So the consultant is taking a really close look at this, and we're making sure we're building it out properly. So this would be not to exceed $27,500 and be applied to our A&E other reimbursable cost line item in the budget, which we currently have $106,790.
Kate, did I hear you correctly when you said something, they have to upgrade something at Town Hall as well, too?
We need to make sure that we have the infrastructure to have the two schools right now online and the third school online at the same time, because there is a time period that everything is gonna be up.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I take a motion to approve the TAI ad service request.
I'll move.
All right, I have a motion for Mr. Fisher. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Fisher. Let me poll the committee. Mr. Frisha,
yes,
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Dr. Kenny,
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Ms. Gaositz,
yes,
Dr. Goff,
yes,
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy, Jeff Fisher,
Yes.
Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Dr. Hahn, no longer with us, Mr. Senek,
Yes.
and I vote yes, it is a vote.
Mr. Barrett has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, real quick, Mark, thanks. I just wanted to say one thing about this storage container, the idea for this possible PCO. And we have a bad habit in this town of buying these, cheap steel containers and just putting them down wherever. And within a couple of years, they rust, and then they can never be opened. And then one side doesn't open, and then the other side doesn't work. And so going cheap, and then it looks like hell. So we're spending a lot of money in possibly upgrading these trees and shrubs, and we're making this all look very nice as it should. So and without any knowledge of what that PCO pricing is or the scope of that, I just encourage you to think, with the bigger picture in mind here. And I don't know if storage container is necessarily what you had in mind. Obviously, caught my ear, but I would encourage us to try to do a little bit better there in those terms. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Anybody else? Kate, what's next?
Communications to and from the MSBA, so I submitted the quarterly change orders for review. We had our last MSBA monthly site visit 2 months ago. The next one scheduled for, or last month, next one scheduled for January 3rd. And the MSBA project funding agreement bid amendment was actually executed by the MSBA today, so we have that back. So I will upload that to the share site so people have it for record. And then just the list of the next meetings, I'll be sending the invites out over the next few days to get placeholders on everybody's calendar. And the next meeting's scheduled for January 16th at 6:30.
Thanks, Kate. Anybody else? Final questions or comments?
Mark, I do have a question.
Yep.
Just a general question around the project itself. Obviously, we have the updates. Are there any areas of concern that we should be thinking about over the next 9 months that we might think we may fall behind on, or contractors might have issues or anything like that? Is there anything?
I would say that generally, we always operate on the mode that anything could go wrong the next day. As far as stuff we're tracking, we all know that the switchgear was something we bought really early, and we're still waiting on that coming in February, we hope. I think we generally have a good bead on every single piece of material that we need for that building and when it's gonna be there. And apart from that, those electrical components that we've known about, tracked and worked on all along, I think we're in excellent shape. And as far as progress on site, we're doing, I would say, better than we would have anticipated. And, you know, there's always a chance something goes wrong tomorrow, of course, but I would say we're in very good shape schedule-wise.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Gallivan, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Dr. Kenny. Let me pull the committee. Mr. Frischow.
Yes.
Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Dr. Kenny.
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan. Ms. Giositz.
Yes.
Dr. Goff.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Jeff Fisher.
Yes.
Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Connor. Mr. Senek.
Yes.
And I vote yes, it is a vote. Thank you. Good night, everybody.